Hi, it's Jane from Moments That Matter, and I'm here with Sara Chevalier today. Welcome, Sara.
Hello, hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, how would you like to dare bravely and live authentic? How do you say it, Sara?
Authentic. Just
Authentically.
authentically. With authenticity, authentically,
Authentically.
authentically.
This is something that Sara lives by. And so today she's going to share a moment in her life that helped her to do just that. Wouldn't we all want to be our authentic self, right? And dare bravely. I think it's amazing. So a little bit about Sara. She lives in Marmora and Lake Ontario, Canada. She's been married for 13 years and has an amazing stepson. She is passionate about personal development and or personal empowerment and self-development. Sara believes, and I'm going to read this because I loved it. Sara believes our purpose is our unique message. And when we tune in and turn up our authentic voice, we unlock our ability to dare bravely and live. I got to say the word right. Authentic. I don't know why I can't say the word. Say authentically. Be authentic.
Be authentic. Authentic.
So, don't you love live video? So, welcome, Sara. I'm excited for you to share. So, what we start with is a question like, what moment in your life shifted the way you think or impacted you, and you know you would not be who you are today without it, and now you're grateful for it? Because a lot of times we look back and we think, wow, if I hadn't gone through that or that moment hadn't happened, it changes you. And I just think it's super impactful. So yes, what is your moment?
Yeah, it does. And it's so true what you say, because it's interesting because the reason that I wanted to share this moment was there had been many moments, and a lot of them were fleeting. You would have them and you would get that little zing, and then you talk yourself out of like, just, you're being crazy. Just go back. You're on do what everyone's doing, do what everything tells you. And part of the message and why this, especially right now, I mean, we've gone through with COVID a time where a lot of people have been feeling alienated and detached from their own lives. And they had warned us, but we know harder times are still coming. I mean, we've got recessions coming. There's some scary times. And I really appreciate you allowing me to come on and share, because it's a message that if I can, and this is part of what the message is to dare bravely. A lot of people may be anxious to share a message like this, but I truly believe our own steps sometimes can be. And that's why I say our message is our purpose. And, I remember I spent, I don't know how many years just chasing the title, chasing the money, chasing, everything that I was told is what will make you happy, what will give you that freedom, what will give you that joy and passion, and, work. And one day when you retire, maybe you'll have time to be happy. And so I was doing that, and I had everything. And I don't think I even knew how detached I was from my own life, because one day on the way home from work, I was driving. It was a fall day, and it was, it was beautiful enough, but I pulled up to the intersection, and when I looked to my left, I saw an 18-wheel truck coming, and I had this moment of, I wonder what speed, like what velocity and what angle would I need to go into that intersection for that truck to make it happen. To really we've had suicide in our family, and my thing was like, well, if you do it, Sara, you better make it, like, because you don't want to end up like in the hospital for 6 years. And it was this moment where, as I said, I'm blessed because we had the episode in our life of suicide, that my sister and I had a pact that we wouldn't do it. But the fact that I could be thinking that scared me. It shook me to my core, because it wasn't just like a little bit of like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. It was actually calculating. And it was like, and that's why I love this idea of authentic. It's like this voice within, this whisper within said, no, Sara, this is not your time. You're not doing this, but something has to change. You have.
Can I just ask you something? I just want to ask you something, because I'm just curious. So in that moment, because it was your thoughts, which can get out of control, but you had something in your past, someone in your family?
My mother. My mother took her own life, which is why my sister and I, it had been so traumatic. And, you know, I say it, but she took her own life, but she became brain dead more than anything. So for the next 6 years, she was in a hospice just as yeah. So it took a lot of time to deal with that. And that's why I say you'd love to think that would happen and you'd suddenly connect to life and say, oh, there's such a great life. I don't want to be like that. But it didn't. It dragged me further down into really just apathy and just going through the motions. And that's why when I had that moment and I was like, okay, you know how much pain this is, you know, this is not an option, but it truly connected to that. I like to say it this way, my life didn't fit me anymore. It was like I was a shell of a person, and I was like, my inner voice finally said, okay, Sara, time to become you. Time to actually try and discover who you are. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And stop just trying to put on this coat of what you're told is what everybody wants. Because if that were the case, you might be happy right now, but you're not. So it really was a moment that shook me to my core and was like, okay, you know, I've got to change what I'm doing, how I'm doing, what I'm thinking. I didn't even know where to start, to be honest. I mean, I just was like, and I'd love to say I got home and from that day on, woohoo. But it was,
I just want to ask, like, just to clarify, because I'm just finding this, like, my mind is kind of blown right now because I didn't actually know that your mother had committed suicide.
I don't share it hugely, but I think, and you know, part of why I do what I do now is I had this moment not that long ago where I was like, Sara, you must share this and help people, because whether it be, you know, I was laughing because I was driving and my mother's favorite song came on and I was like, damn, I wish I knew now, like then what I know now. But I'm like, okay, well, I don't know it to help her, but I do know it to help others. Right. Whether it be the daughter who could maybe survive going through that, or the person to hopefully not make those decisions, because there is always more.
How old were you when she took
her life? It was before I got married. So I wasn't a kid, but I was like 30. I think I was 32. I think I was 32. And then it was like 6 years where she was in the hospice. I know most people should know the date off by heart, but I have a little trick of like forgetting things like that, like just erased from my mind. So, but it was about when I was 32. So what am I now? 48.
Well, it's going to affect your whole life. And I think what's interesting is that moment when you're, you know, I don't know if it must have been for you that almost shock, was it, that you could even think that because of what your mom went through? But
it was, yeah. I mean, again, it was a saving grace in the sense of my sister and I, and not for myself at that stage. Luckily, my love for my sister was stronger than anything, because I was like, oh my God, I could not do this to her. Like, that's not even an option. I can't put her through that.
Yeah. But so many people have that thought. Mm-hmm. It's sad. But I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we know someone that's struggling with that thought. I went through it. So many people do. And a lot of these interviews, it actually comes out like, oh, I had suicidal thoughts, or I was depressed, or whatever it was. So, okay, so you had that thought, and then that shifted the way you were thinking. So you were going to make some changes.
Yeah. It was just like what we call good old fashioned rude awakening, where I was like, okay, you know what? I'd had the thought before too. And, you know, typically you're just like, oh, it's a phase, you know, you know, you need to go on a vacation. You need just, you know, a little bit of whatever. And I think at that stage, it really was, because I felt this thing from within saying, Sara, there's something else. Stop ignoring what you know to be your truth. This is not the path. You don't want to be corporate. You don't want to be running these teams and driving numbers. And, you know, I mean, I loved it. And I'm very grateful for everything in my life for that. But when I looked forward, I didn't have anything to look forward to. You know what I mean? So it was like, I finally was like, okay, well, kind of start from scratch and say, what would you actually love to do? What would you enjoy to do? Who do you think you want to be moving forward? Like, and so it was very scary, because I was like, I had no idea. I hadn't taken the time. I've been working since I was 13, and it was like, just always chasing. It's like, okay, you know, and it worked out well, and I had lots of stuff. But that was the funny thing, is you would be searching for these little zings of moments. So I ended up with like shopping addiction, because it was the only thing that would suddenly make me feel. And then of course you'd go through the guilt the next day, like, oh my God, why did I buy all this stuff I don't need? But even that wasn't enough. So as I said, it was a moment that I'm incredibly grateful for, because I had had many little moments that kind of were trying to tell me that years and years earlier, but that I ignored. But at that point, when it got so serious, I was like, okay, I can't ignore this. If I do, then I don't even want to pretend what might happen. So, coming home, and as I said, it took about 6 months before I really started to take action and started to try and, open my mind to, okay, well, if what I'm feeding my mind, if what's around me isn't exciting me or inviting me to be more expansive about what are other things we can do with our lives, then go find it. Like, stop waiting for it to come to you and just hope that as you're going, because I mean, anyone in corporate will know, I mean, you're working 10, 12-hour days. There's, you're glued to your phone. There is no weekend. And I was like, you have to make the space for yourself to actually start to, and again, in that essence, because it was COVID and we were predominantly stuck at home, it gave me a little bit more liberties, that, hour to and from work, instead of being in the car and just having traffic and being like, time to say, okay, take the morning walk with the dog, go be in spaces, open up and see like what, and start listening to yourself, actually learning to trust. And it's funny, because when I say dare bravely, that's exactly it. It's none of the steps that I took were easy. They didn't just happen naturally. I had to build that confidence. I had to build belief in myself that what I was feeling and hearing and moving in myself was my truth. And that was okay. That I didn't have to necessarily subscribe to what, and it's so funny because, if you look at social proof, we say it's what everyone wants, but I think we're all looking at each other going, is this what I'm supposed to do? And we're all kind of feeling this, like, and I don't want to say everybody, there are people who love it and they're going to shine in that field. But, I think if I were to go back and say, what would you love? I would have loved to have been an artist, it's like, just create and be a philosopher. But you're brought up, especially, as I said, we came from very low means, where it was like, I wanted to be a daycare teacher at one point. And my mother's only answer was like, you don't make money in that, Sarah. And I was like, oh, okay. And so this idea of like, well, money and title is what's going to make you. And to come back and suddenly say, well, if it's going to make me in the eyes of others, great, but it doesn't make me in the eyes of me. Right. And I want to be me, and I want to be expressive, and I want to learn how to be me, because after 40 years, you kind of lose the connection of like, who am I? And it's doing that whole self journey and self-development, and then learning to trust that, and to have enough wherewithal to speak it and be it in front of other people. And that, I think that takes a lot of the daring bravely of saying, it's not that I'm not afraid, but I know I want to go that way. I know that this bridge is leading me better, because the bridge I was on wasn't leading me where I want to be, and I'm not going back to that.
Yeah.
And so
good for you. So powerful, because I mean, it's interesting, as we age, you do go more inward. I mean, what is the other choice? And I think we are kind of programmed to go and get the job, get the money. And if you have all these things, you're going to be happy. And so it's like this, it's almost like a program that we think that's where the happiness is coming from. And then as you get older, you have all this stuff, like you say, you can go buy all the clothes and buy everything, and you don't have joy. No. Joy doesn't come from anything outside ourselves. It only is inside. But it's like, so there's that journey to be like, I've got it all. I have everything, but I'm not feeling happy. And so those moments, like that moment for you, were like, wow, like I have it all. I've worked hard. I did what everyone said I should do. And now there's this fleeting feeling of like,
an empty bag. I'm left with an empty bag. I did it all, and my bag is empty.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like that moment where you have that thought of like, gee, like, is this all it is? And you feel like, you could drive into the truck or whatever it is. It's like, wow, there's got to be more. There's more. Yeah. So,
and in our way, and that's why I love, like, your signature life, it's like, it's different for everybody. And I I'm very thankful. I almost that, like, social media when I was young, I mean, if you made a fool of yourself, it lasted a day or two until someone else made a fool of themselves, and it wasn't so big. And so now in today's society, where we're constantly being fed what is approved as to how you should be, how you should look, what kind of job, what kind of car, and to go against the grain of that and want to say, well, that's beautiful on you and I'm happy for you. And if that's what you love, then love it. But I don't have to. I don't have to love that. I can love what I love, but I need to at least allow myself the space to learn what do I love and tap into your, that's why I say your inner voice, your inner knowing, and actually learn to trust that and to
Yeah.
stop and say, okay, wait a second. Yes, this is great. And I think the biggest thing too is so many of us think we have to put it on hold. Like it's always this bigger than, but there's so many beautiful now moments, small moments. Like, you know, you have a dog, Jane, you know what it is. Like just taking your dog something, like I get some of the biggest giggles just watching him be goofy and running around with his dog friends. And whereas in the past, I didn't even enjoy my dog walks. It was like, okay, come on, we gotta go. I gotta get to work next. It was always the next. I was like, I have time to be happy when I reach this, when, then. And as soon as you're doing the when, then, you're missing out in the now. And I think we rush through our lives. And then when you get somewhere, you're like, where am I and why am I here?
Yeah. We do rush through it. And so, and I mean, life exists only in the present moment. It's just here and now, but we're either ahead, like you say, walking your dog in a hurry because you got to get somewhere. I used to be like that too. And just come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And now it's like walking and being grateful for every step and being like, wow, like it's so beautiful out. And it's just being immersed in the moment. And you realize, wow, life is actually very simple. It's just present. Not that you don't do all these things. You're just present in the moment.
Yeah.
So
we can become larger and have these great jobs too. And that's beautiful. I mean, for me, I had to rip off everything and just, as I said, even now, it's like every time I think certainty and comfort is coming in, I do something to shake it up because it's like, how do I keep making sure I'm going on this path? But a lot of it is just, like you said, it's finding things that are in tune with you.
Yeah.
That truly, because we all have our own verse, we all have our own words, we all have our own message. And that's why I say message is your purpose, because what is it you want to share? And it doesn't have to be large scale. It can be just small within your community, within what is it, is it love with children? Is it love of animals? Like, how do we give ourselves at least time and space to discover and enjoy and learn who we are? And it can be scary for some people because, again, especially when you've had a lot of years, then you get nervous, like, oh, do I want to even know who I am? But even that is a false voice. That's comparing to what you think you're like. I say it, my favorite saying is says who. When someone says you can't do them, so it says who. Who decides what we can and can't do, what's right for us? Only we can decide that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think you're absolutely amazing. And it's beautiful to see how you are now. And it's hard. You look back and you think to go through difficult times, but that's where you grow and you learn and you dig deep. We have to. I think if life was all rosy and perfect, I mean, really, what do you learn? So what is the meaningful message you would like to share with the world? Do you have one main message that you want to share?
Well, truly, my message is that everything you need to live authentic, to live joyous, is within you already. Most of what many of us have spent much money going back to learn is what we were born with naturally. We know what's right. We know what we desire. We know it all. We've become detached. So truly, to love yourself and trust yourself and give yourself the space to learn it, because everything you need is within you, and you don't need external approval or permission to let it out and just shine. Is your beautiful, authentic self.
Oh, that's amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. So quickly, favorite book?
Favorite book is Influence by Robert Cialdini.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic book. Fantastic. Not just for business. I learned so much about the person and how that whole idea of like the all. I mean, I would come home I was listening to it on Audible with my dog, and I'd come home and my husband, poor guy, would be like, oh, do you know today? I was like mind blown every time. Obviously, the power of now.
What was it? Influenced by who?
By Robert Cialdini.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll put that in the comments. And favorite quote?
Favorite quote?
Do you have a favorite quote?
I have a bunch of them. I'm trying to think. There's one, I'm gonna mess it up, and it's it's an old one, but it goes, a river, the river, the river you come to is never the same river, and it is never the same man who crosses it. I'm messing it up. I can put it in after, but the idea is that the same, even things that you think are the same are always changing. There is always new. There is always possibility, and it's never truly the same. Everything is fluid and moving, and you never know. Yeah, I'll put it down after, because it's a beautiful quote, but I will massacre the name of the person. It's a very old. It's like Hercules or something like that.
Okay, I love it. Yeah.
So much more eloquently than how I said it. So.
Okay, we'll put the book in the comments and the quote. Totally love it. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you so much, Jane, for, as I said, it's a time of great, a lot of people are feeling the same way. And so I really appreciate you giving me a chance to, because if somebody hears this, and just knowing sometimes you're not alone is so powerful, that, you're not so bizarre to have these thoughts. It's okay. What's not okay is to not listen to yourself and take action to move forward and honor and love yourself enough to know you're worth it and you're made for more.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much. We'll also post in the comments a link to join your Facebook group or community.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks everyone for watching. Okay, bye, Sara.
Bye.
Bye.